this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, and this is part 2 of Life After Football, the story of Erik Kramer. And obviously, in part 1, we talked about Erik's battle with anxiety and depression and how he has overcome it and what he is doing for the community and his plans. This episode explains the situation that Erik had to deal with back around 2015, 2016, all the way up to very recent, that he is writing a book about in regards to the court system that he had to deal with during the time that he was in a coma and the annulment of his ex-wife. Erik wanted to speak about this because it leads into his new book that will be coming out within the next year that we're very excited to share with you guys. Erik will be coming on when that book is released, so more to come with that. But please stay tuned for this episode. It is a very great story. And if you've ever seen the movie on Netflix, I Care a Lot, this literally will speak straight up to what happened in that movie to Erik's experience in real life. Very unfortunate. Erik's a very rare person to come out of the situation, so you don't want to miss this one. So thank you very much and enjoy the episode. Thank you very much for that. And I just want to hit on one more thing before we let you go today, is in regards to something that's happened a little bit more recently to you, and it happened in regards to when you were in a coma during your attempted suicide, is the annulment that you went through. And can you touch on the conservatorship process? I think I said that correct. I know you and I have hit on it a few times. And for those wondering, what that is, if you go on Netflix and you watch the movie I Do Care, this is the exact process that Erik is talking about. And can you kind of, Erik, hit on the process quickly? Kind of like a 2-minute description, and any advice to viewers that could have a loved one going through the same process and what they can do to help themselves.
Yeah. So what ended up transpiring is that fortunately I survived. Unfortunately, I was left with what's called a severe traumatic brain injury. And when you have that, it limits your ability to think and to, you'll do things and not remember them. So there's a good 2 or 3 year period in my life, which went from, mid-August of 2015, probably through much of 2018, even on into 2019, where it got better for sure, but it takes a while. And what happened was that somebody who had entered my life after Griffin passed away, she's the sister, her name's Courtney Baird. She's the sister who was or is, at that time, I was friends with her brother, Dave Baird. Their family is from the East Coast, I think Philadelphia or something. And so I had met Courtney a time or two over just the course of knowing her brother. And when Griffin passed away, she was one of the people who would come by my house. Only as I look back, she was one of the people that came by after everybody else had come by. And so she came at a time when my house, where I was living alone, went from living alone to I was still alone living wise, but there was kind of an influx of people that would come by day, noon, and night. And some of them, they started off by those people that lived here. It started off, then later it was my sister that drove out. Then friends from out of state flew out. And Courtney waited for all of that to die down. And then she came by on like a weekend day. And, she had a young daughter at that time, Macy. And I think Courtney might have just been by herself. So she comes by, and obviously, it was for condolences for Griffin. But my birthday is November 6th, and Griffin passed away on October 30th, so about a week apart. And so she had brought by some cupcakes as well. And so that, didn't think anything of it. It was nice. And Dylan also, at that time, was living with his mom, Marshawn. And eventually, Dylan came to begin living with me. It was just a choice he made. And then there was times when Courtney would come by just either to talk or maybe watch a movie or something. And so it sort of started to develop into just this sort of acquaintance, friendship-ish thing. And, because I was going to Grief Share, there was a local church, and I was not a churchgoer at the time, but it was the church where Griffin had his memorial service. Big, expansive church, but they also had a lot of other programs, one of them being a Grief Share, which was a grief support, whatever it was. So it was about a 13 or 14 week, once a week at night thing. And so I was going to that too. And in any event, Courtney and I guess a quick way to say it is we developed a relationship. And the problem though was that for me anyway, was that Courtney had a very difficult time listening, right? She was sort of an accusatory, almost would invite an argument. Sure. And that was at a time for me, dealing with Griffin's loss was not the thing I needed to be doing. And eventually over the course of say the next, probably the next 2.5 years or so, it was sort of an on again, off again, more off again relationship that eventually ended, at least from my part, in January of 2015. And then, life goes on and started, just getting back to life, really. And then, again, I fall into this depression and end up called a friend of mine who, prior to me, played quarterback for the Lions, Erik Hipple. Unbeknownst to me, Erik had begun, he ushered in I guess you call it a depression center that was tied to not only the University of Michigan, but had received funding from a part of the NFL. And so he says, hey, after listening to me, I don't know how long this conversation took place, but he says, hey, here's what I'm doing now and a part of. Do you think you could fly out here? And I said, sure. So I went out there for 30 days, and it was an excruciating 30 days, I will say. After like day 1 or 2, I called Erik, and I don't know how far Erik lived from there, but let's just say it was a half hour, 45 minutes. He came out within that first day or two, and we're walking around this big, farm fieldish thing. And I'm telling him, I said, Erik, I really appreciate you helping me or providing a place for me to come out here. But I just felt so bad. I go, I just don't think this is the right place for me. And I don't know if that wasn't, I don't know what would have been. But so anyway, after going there and flying home, eventually, I don't know how long after I got home, but I began planning my exit. And so when I say planning, there wasn't much to plan with a gun, and planning financially to look after Dylan, but I did it in a way that if I was ever to be a financial planner, an estate planning attorney, and someone came in to me that I represented with the detail that I provided, something would throw a red flag up. So I had to deal with that. Here I am trying to look like, oh, this is just what I'm doing. I'm just pretty much living a state together and trying to make it look like I'm sitting across a table. Like if it was me and you sitting across the table, I'd be trying to look like this is just what I put together and I'll see you next week. And so, there was that part of what was going on too. And eventually I got to where there was no more planning to be done. And you don't think about what about the end when there's no planning to be done. When I got to that point, I remember standing at the top of the stairs one morning going, well, now there's nothing left to do about unless except for one thing. And that one thing was shooting myself. And so I drove to a hotel or motel, whatever, not too far away, thinking that, this is my best thinking. If Dylan were to somehow walk in and find me, if he was the one to find me, I wouldn't want it to be here. So I went to this hotel. It was called the Good Night Inn, unfortunately, because I guess it turned out in a way to be, because I didn't die. And so, yeah, that day, August 18th, 2015, I shot myself. And I'm not proud to say it. I am proud to say I'm still here because of some incredible doctors, and then the support of my family, and my aunt, my sister, my Anna Durgan, who she and I went to high school together, and just some really good people. Robert Espinoza, who is a very dear friend of mine. All of them, just so many people jumped in. And when you mentioned conservatorship, what happened was there was an investigation launched on Courtney for theft. And it was really launched by Anna. And she noticed some, I guess I came home from my sister's. What happened was Courtney flew out, drove me home in my car, which I don't remember. And that's about a 4.5-hour drive from the Las Vegas area to where I live now. And I'm going to guess within that 4-hour drive, she must have figured out, A, I have forgotten that we broke up. B, since I don't remember that drive today, I can guarantee you I was off then. So she would have picked up on that too. 4 hours is a long time to be in a car with someone and not notice that. And so about 4 days after being home, now that I've had a chance to go look back at, bank statements and credit card statements and, court transcripts, I can see where it all began. And so, yeah, about 4 days after, she began stealing. And what Anna began to notice were all these Amazon packages showing up at my door. Anna wasn't living with me, but she would come, and she was very instrumental in my stays at every hospital. When I eventually went to a place called CNS, which was a brain rehab clinic, but they also had 2 homes, of which I lived in one of them. So she was always around. And whenever she would come by my house to check on me, she would notice a lot of Amazon packages at the door on the porch, all addressed to Courtney Baird. And she was like, Erik hasn't ordered anything from anybody in his entire life. So that's kind of what tipped her off. And she began looking, with my sister's approval, looking through my banking information, my credit card statements and so forth, and found nothing, ATM withdrawals from Wells Fargo Bank, where I banked, like thousands of dollars, and charges that were obviously Courtney's, because it was either, something, hair product wise, or hair beauty salon wise, or something soccer related for her daughter. So she was very quickly put everything in her whole life on my credit card in some way or another. She eventually went on to forge 4 checks. And so there was a time in October of 2016 where Anna reached out to a friend of mine who at that time worked at the Lost Hills County Sheriff's Department, or LA County Sheriff's Department at Lost Hills, which is the one closest to me. And Chris Gurman, got her in touch with this detective, Dave Lingscheid. And very quickly, he came, after getting all this information from Anna, he came to see me at CNS. And I don't really remember that date or what happened in that meeting. And so to top it off, at the end of that, my perception of that day was I don't know what we looked at or discussed. I thought I got into the car, like I thought Courtney had picked me up that end of that day, and I'd gotten into the car saying, "You're not going to believe what just happened today." That this detective came and talked about, I don't know what we talked about. Well, I drove that day. And that's how out of whack mentally you can be with this brain injury. And so a couple of days prior to that detective coming to see me, I had set an appointment with a neuropsychologist, Dr. Robert Tomaszewski, because what I wanted to do was gain control of my own money back, to get it back from Raymond James Trust Department. Because at that time, they were paying for all of my, whatever, the house, the any bill I had, they paid for. Utilities, because my house was still being paid for, even though I wasn't living in it. Well, I didn't know that at the time. I just didn't have any concept of money, period. So anyway, I am going to try to gain control of my money. Well, in order to do that, I had to pass a certain evaluation for this neuropsychologist. Well, I failed and failed miserably. And not only that, Anna had called the detective to tell him, Detective Linscheid, please call Dr. Tomaszewski and let him know what you found in Erik. So he calls Tomaszewski to tell him, okay, no matter what Erik, I don't know what evaluation you do, Erik has no concept of he's being stolen from or by who. And so that's what Tomaszewski put in his report. Courtney has been stealing from Erik. Erik has no ability to comprehend that theft. He's subject to undue influence, which means, if whoever had my ear last wins. So if Nick, you and I were walking across the street, and before getting to the other side, you say, hey, when we get to the curb, we're going to go left. Oh, okay. When we get to the curb, someone else shows up and says, hey, Erik, let's go over here. And then we're going right down the street. Great, no problem. That's undue influence. So anybody has the ability, and Courtney did. So I was with that written, Dr. Thomas' written report comes back and says, I am not only financially incapacitated, I'm also medically incapacitated. So I had no ability, no right really to sign a legal document, which is what a marriage certificate is. So Courtney has been stealing. She knows there's an investigation on her. So that, and the way she knows it is I must have told her somewhere, not obviously in the car like I thought, but then a notice from Wells Fargo Bank comes to my mailbox saying that there's been a search warrant issued on your accounts here at Wells Fargo. We're cooperating with the investigation. Here's the detective's name and phone number and contact information. She intercepts that. And she reads it. Oh, there's an investigation. Here's who it's by. I'm going to go drive to his office. So she does. And she admits everything that she stole. She admits the forgeries, the theft, everything. At some point, she turns around and walks out of his office. So I've never heard of that before. Like, Nick, if you were an investigator and you're investigating murder,
right,
and I'm the sole murder suspect,
right,
and I walk into your office one day out of the blue and I confess to the murder, do I walk out of your office?
No, you should not.
So, but okay, she didn't murder anybody, but here's a outright confession of stealing $50,000, which is a hefty amount, and 4 forgeries, which is also a hefty thing to do. What I forgot to mention earlier was Courtney, at some point in time after we'd broken up, had gotten arrested for forging a doctor's prescription in Ventura County. So she got basically a slap on the wrist. Probation is what she got, 36-month probation, and had to pay restitution of however much, I don't know. Part of her restitution was paid with stolen funds she took from me. So how do you not arrest her? Right. But so 3 weeks go by, no arrest. So Courtney, to get the investigation to go away, she's successful by marrying me.
Yep.
And I couldn't sign a legal document. And she knew that, which makes the marriage a crime, which unfortunately is not a crime in the district attorney's office. I don't get it, but they don't see it that way. And so even if it was a crime, it's only a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. So they don't want misdemeanors because there's 30 misdemeanors she's had, which were all perjury related. They don't care. Why have a law against perjury if you're not going to enforce it?
Right.
Why not just add it on? What's it going to hurt? If I steal $50,000 from you and then I go steal $100 more, is that not still part of the crime? I don't get it. So anyway, that marriage, basically the investigation died the day that marriage happened. How? It's a crime. Mm-hmm. So anyway, what happened was, to get the marriage annulled, my aunt and my sister and Anna were informed by the detective before the marriage ever happened. Get Erik conserved. That will slow down or stop the theft. That was in the mind of the district attorney. That's what she thought would happen. So in this court case, in this January 10th, 2017 hearing, in this court case, it's a hearing to get my estate conserved. My aunt, who's the only living relative I have here in California that's of age at that time, was trying to gain conservatorship of my estate.
Right.
Because that's what she was informed to do by the detective, who was informed by the district attorney, thinking that's going to be the first step in stopping the theft. And then the next step in getting the annulment was, once the estate's conserved, then you go after conservatorship of the person, which should seem simple enough. And then once you have those two, the annulment, easy. Okay. So unfortunately, in steps Michael Harrison. Michael Harrison is the court-appointed attorney in this conservatorship court case. Michael Harrison gets before ever coming to my house, on January 5th, 5 days before this hearing, he receives the petition of the court. Petition of the court saying, Erik is being stolen from by Courtney Baird, and that they're looking to be being conserved of the estate. That's what he received. He also received the contact information of the detective. He received the written report and Dr. Tomaszewski's contact information. He received the contact information of my aunt, my sister, and Anna Durden. Guess who he called? No one.
No one.
So he comes to my house on January 8th. He meets with me and the thief, but he represents me. Why is he meeting with the thief? So he mentions no theft by Courtney Baird. He tells me, Erik, once this once the judge hears you speak, everything that your aunt, and at that time my sister was on the conservatorship side as well. And I forgot, he was also given a piece of paper showing that in order, they were trying to get the estate conserved, my estate, me, the person conserved, and the marriage annulled due to fraud. Michael Harrison tells me, Erik, when the judge hears you speak, everything that your aunt and sister are trying to do, which is annul your marriage and basically tell me they want to control all your finances and they want to tell you where you can live, who you can talk to, and who you can receive mail from. Sure. They want to annul your marriage. All of that will go away once the judge hears you speak. So he's got me like, again, I'm not subject just to undue influence from Courtney Baird, anybody. So here's Michael Harrison steering me against the people that are trying to protect me.
Right.
So he's driving a wedge between the very people that are trying to look out for me. Calls nobody. The first person to testify in this conservatorship court case, the estate one, is what's his name? Detective Lingshite. He, under oath, states that Courtney admitted to him to stealing $50,000 and that she's been doing so over several months. And he leaves, and I didn't even know he was there. As I told you before,
right,
late October, I didn't know, I couldn't tell you what he looked like. In that courtroom, he couldn't have been standing more than 10 feet from me. I didn't even know he was there. I didn't hear what he said, nothing. Only after Anna had given me the transcripts later did I come to find out that not only he spoke, I spoke, Courtney spoke.
Everyone spoke.
Courtney herself admitted to stealing in the courtroom. Nobody gets arrested. And we go on about our merry way. There was supposed to be another hearing for the conservatorship of the person, of me. Mm-hmm. That day, I don't think I was in court that day, but that day, Michael Harrison approaches the lawyer who was representing my aunt, Jonathan Cole. And before the judge even sits in the chair, he says, and Anna's sitting right there, he says, you know, we can get rid of this whole thing by the conservatorship deal by getting a post-nuptial agreement. So he basically eliminates any possibility of a quick annulment. So basically, this thing gets dragged on and on and on, the conservatorship court case. So basically, I fire Michael Harrison, get a different, Jamie Gonzalez is her name. She does the same thing he's doing. So she eventually gets me to sign a, what's it called? A settlement agreement where I don't get to sue her, her firm, the person who turns out to be the professional conservator, or her lawyer. So they all protect each other. So that's the way I got out of the conservatorship. It still didn't give me control of my own money back. So I had to go back, get reevaluated again. And so that's how this whole thing ended. The marriage did get annulled based on my unsound mind and Courtney's fraud. So that's going to come back, hopefully, to bite Michael Harrison in the ass later, not only with me, but with the California State Bar. But so anyway, this is a long story, I know, and I'm sorry, but all due to a brain injury. Had there not been one, there never would have been a Courtney Baird. There never would have been a story about conservatorship. There never would have been a marriage. The whole thing ended when I got falsely accused by Courtney of domestic violence and got arrested for it. So Had Bill Chin, the original deputy district attorney, done her job, arrested Courtney, never would have been $300,000, and there would have been 50,000, but there wouldn't have been 300,000 in theft. There would not have been 400,000 in between the family law matter, which was the divorce attorney I had to hire, who basically annulled the marriage, cost me $125,000 just for his attorney's fees. The conservatorship court fees were another over $200,000, and then along the way, before it became an annulment, Courtney tried to extort money from me through her lawyer if I would, give a certain amount in the settlement agreement. When it was going to be prior to the annulment, it was going to be a divorce. She filed for divorce. So if I made her a certain, monthly, I guess it would be alimony, then she would drop the domestic violence charge. That the one word comes to mind there is extortion. So that didn't happen. And then later, when Michael Frawley is out of town, her lawyer goes in an ex parte fashion and asks the judge to give Courtney $30,000 or $10,000 for her lawyer and $25,000 to move out of my house, which the judge gives her. And he had the whole brief on Courtney's theft. So Bill Chen is who I point to after Courtney. Courtney did it, but Bill Chen allowed it to happen. And so I know you got to go, but that's the combination of as it relates to me, of the criminal court system and the conservatorship court system meshed together in one big ball of spaghetti that tasted terrible going down.
Man, and it's an incredible story. So again, so just to clarify, we have multiple parts to this. This is Erik's story about his life and his overall experience with the court system, as well as his depression and suicide. Erik, it's just absolutely insane what's happened to you. But like you've said to me off air, you're one of the rare individuals that actually gets out of this system, is able to tell your story. And hopefully this situation is going to help others move forward and hopefully fix what many view as a broken system. So thank you very much for sharing that. It has been an absolute honor having you on this episode today. It's definitely going to be very fun for viewers to watch, learn more about you as a person and as the Chicago Bears quarterback. So thank you very much, Erik, for coming on. We hope to have you on again soon.
I appreciate it. Love the hat. Love the jersey. I don't see the number attached to it.
It's Justin
Number
Fields.
One, Justin Fields. I love it. All right. Well, hopefully we get a win out of this upcoming game against the Rams, which I was going to go to, by the way, but then something came up and I can't. But anyway, hopefully the Bears come out of that with a win.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for everyone for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside Erik Kramer, and we will see you guys next time.